thank you very much. Can everybody hear me? Do you want to do a shift forward? I don't mind getting that close here. First of all, huge thank you to Eduardo for inviting me here. It's a bit like when you organise a party and you don't know if anyone's going to turn up or not. So it's so nice to see so many of you here. And yeah, so first thing, disclaimer, severe Scottish accent happening. This is our First Minister who runs our government, and he needs subtitles. So if I speak too fast or my accent's too much, feel free to shout out or stick your hand up. So I wanted to start off tonight by just telling you a bit about me and how I ended up forming Snook and working on the type of stuff that I work on today. So I started life as a product designer. I'm sure like some of the designers in the room. I was on a mission to become the next female James Dyson or the next female Steve Jobs who was going to design like things that would transform the world and make you really rich and really happy. And then in my second year at university, my course director left to go and work at a service design agency. And he then came back to tell us all about his new job. And I was just amazed. There's a name for this thing that I think about and want to do and want to work on. And back then and even now, it's very hard to learn service design. You can't pick up a textbook and become a service designer. So I taught myself by immersing myself in industry and really stopping the people who were doing it and making money from it and having impact and really kind of learning on the go. And through all that, I started a blog called Red Jotter, and that's also my Twitter name. And I guess that kind of became a bit of a go-to resource for service design, because at the time the Service Design Network hadn't really found its feet yet. So through my blog, I met Sarah Drummond, who's now my business partner. And she is Ruffle Muffin on Twitter, if any of you want to say hi to her. I think I got the best deal. She was in Manchester yesterday, and I'm in New York. And we met up, and it was one of those really cheesy moments when we decided Scotland's not big enough for the both of us. So, we didn't like London, we didn't want to move there, there was no agency doing the jobs that we wanted to do. So we decided to create Snook, and that's where it all began. So this was 4 years ago, and 4 years on, this is kind of Snook in a page. We have delivered over 90 projects across the public, private and government sector. We do work all over the world, although we are based in Glasgow. We have a studio up above a vintage tea shop. And the work we do abroad is mainly keynotes, and we do a lot of teaching. And some projects do clients like the British Council, who are recently had us to Nigeria and faraway places like that. So just to kind of share what our big vision for all this is. So we want to use service design to change how Scotland works and thinks. And we put this under a banner of the DIY Scottish Re-Enlightenment. Now probably none of you are obsessed with the Scottish Enlightenment the way I am, so I'll give you a snapshot history. I guess it was a period in 18th century history where a group of Scots got together and really started to vocalise and theorise on this real faith in human ability to change and a real optimistic view on the capacity of all of us to make things better. And they really challenged the status quo and went on to lead to a thought process that transformed the world in lots of ways. So we want to recreate that, but a DIY version, so that citizens and employees and people on the ground who make our communities what they are can solve their own problems. So our big vision is to create a Scotland that's full of people who are inspired, engaged, and able to use design and digital to solve problems that matter to them. And I guess just before I go any further, it's important that I'm honest and make clear that I don't believe service design or any design can solve all our problems. It certainly can't solve the the ills of the public sector, but I do know that we waste a lot of money on badly designed public services. And I believe design is one way that we can start shifting those services towards meeting the needs of 21st century citizens. So this is our business model. The way we work is really by turning the pyramid on its head every chance we get. We start with citizens, with users, with employers, not with service providers or clients or governments. We start on the ground. And what really strikes me is the amazing people that I meet, teachers, nurses, all these people, lollipop lady. Do you guys have lollipop lady? The lady that's supposed to design so the kids can cross. Oh, yeah. Crossing guard. Crossing guard, there we go. So all these amazing crossing guards. And, then there's people at the top of the pyramid who make really big decisions on where money goes and what services get funding and where resource goes, but yet there's no conversation between the two. And for me, that's just really silly, because the people on the ground, they're the experts in why the service is broken. They're experts on why it's not working the way it's supposed to work, but yet they're not part of that conversation. So Snook's real belief is that design is one way of starting to flatten that pyramid so that everyone can have a much more equal and mutual conversation and process towards change and making things better. So in terms of how we work, we are a limited company, so we are for profit, but our business model is much more of that, like a social enterprise, in a way that we put the profit back into our organisation. We have a board, we have a Snook ensemble, which is a network that I'm creating with people who are very different from me, so people like scientists and politicians and, economic experts, so that we can pull them into projects when we need them. And then we have Snooksters, which is our intern program, and it's like an internship, but better because you get paid and you get to hang out in Scotland. So what more could you ask for? So we have 3 models in terms of how we work. So this first one, customer experience design, that's really about making services more useful, more beautiful, more seamless. So, an airport might call us up and say, or a GP, or a local doctor's surgery, the queue is broken, it's messy, it's too long, can you help us fix that? Then we have the Snook Laboratory, and that's a physical space where organisations can bring a project, a problem, a budget, and we fast track them through the design process to get their product to a prototype phase where they can let it loose into the wild and get some feedback. And we also use the lab to build our own products and services, so practicing what we preach is really important for us. And then embedding design is, if you like, the big grand vision. We want to embed design inside the Scottish Government. And it does feel as crazy as it sounds sometimes, but really for us success is when a project finishes, our clients say, I need you to show me how to make this process part of our DNA. This process, whether it be service design, design thinking, creativity, innovation, the language is not important, but how do we make it part of the DNA of how our organisation functions? And we do that through 3 models. So the first one is that very thing, working from the inside out, so embedding ourselves inside government agencies. Inside out is when we come in as consultants and we get paid to do a project. And then outside, completely outside, is when we go off and do our own thing, and then we try and sell that to market or whatever it might be. And I'm going to show you some examples of each one. So this is my team, and I must say, big waves and support to these guys back in Scotland, because as we grow, Sarah and I are realising that our team is the most important thing in the whole world, and actually the most difficult thing we've found is finding the right people to form the right team. It's actually a really tricky thing, so much love to these guys. And these are some of our clients, so majority are public sector agencies. And this is our studio, so As I said, you have to climb through a vintage tea shop to get to us, which leaves some civil servants a bit nervous by the time you get to the top. But it's fun, and we love it. So in terms of our impact and things that we feel proud of that have happened since we started, I got flown over to Beijing to present our work to the Beijing government, and as you can imagine, inverting the pyramid in China, you know, is quite controversial, and you know, I still don't know what that says. You know, let's all hope it says something positive. But for us, it's just amazing to see how governments and countries all over the globe are really starting to take notice of this stuff. It's really shifting. It's not about fluffiness. We're not at the kids' table anymore. Things are shifting, and the designs are becoming part of the grown-up conversation in the boardrooms in Parliament, wherever it might be. And we actually got invited to host a debate inside the Scottish Parliament. So this is me, and this is Sarah. And apparently I'm the first lady to walk the Parliament floor in red high heels. But when you grow up in Scotland, this is what you see on the news every night, this room. So this is where all the usually men in their 50s with white hair sit and make decisions about the future of our country. So for us to stand up there and work with all these young people and turn the conversation around from all the things that are wrong and all the things that feel really shit to actually let's turn these into design challenges. How can we fix these? What are the solutions? How can we start to prototype different ways? And we also, you know, we get invited to things like the AIGA conference, the huge body that governs the graphic design industry. And again, it's fascinating for us to see other design disciplines as well as foreign disciplines actually getting really intrigued and curious as to what this service design thing is and how it complements their own craft. And Sarah was awarded a Google Fellowship for her thinking around digital and how digital is going to, is really changing the way we produce and consume services. She got to come over to New York and hang out with Google, so that was a really good one. And we also won the Young Scot Award for Enterprise, which was special for us because we are so socially driven. We really want to. We are guilty of the whole change the world chant, and it makes people think that we're a charity, or people think that we're we're just doing this for fun. Actually, we are a business, and we're trying to work out how to make money, but also have this positive impact at the same time. So to be recognised for enterprise is something that felt really special to us. So I'm going to take you through some of our projects, give you some examples of things that we've worked on. So post-16 learner journey is what our government calls the fancy word for leaving school. And they asked us to reimagine what this journey of leaving school can feel like. So, we spent a long time in schools and colleges really listening to learners and teachers and getting a sense of, what those journeys feel like, where all the obstacles are, where the highs and the lows are, and where there's opportunity for innovation. And the first thing that we realised was there's actually not one bit of paper that I could hand to a young person and say, you're leaving school, here's all your options. Didn't exist. So we made one, and it was super simple. So people see our projects and are like, well, that's just common sense. We're like, I know. But it's not common practice, and this is our blessing and our curse, if you like, as a field, that some of this stuff is so simple, but it's often, it's just not common practice. So the government are now using this document, which we're calling the Learner Journey Route Map, to help young people understand all their options, and we're really pushing to try and get this turned into a digital tool so that journeys can be uploaded and conversations can start to be shared and developed. Layering the stories of learners and all the different directions that they've gone in and the impact that's had onto this journey could really make a difference to the learners. And it led to the Scottish Government's first ever hack day, which we're not allowed to call a hack day, data jam. And that was a tough, of course. You know, we're like, well, we need beer and pizza. They're like, well, what? You know, we need a sign that the beer saying that beer is not endorsed by the Scottish government. You know, but joking aside, you know, it was a real battle to get them to see, you know, the mindset of this style and this way of working. But what was amazing was it actually went really, really well, and we had really senior, influential people from government stand up and praise it and talk about the value that it brought, and hopefully they'll keep working this way with lots of other agencies and lots of other developers. And these were some of the ideas that were built over that weekend. My colleague Lizzie built a course finder. Again, such common sense, a big list of every course you can study in Scotland didn't exist before this hack. And Lizzie and Devin built it in 48 hours. So that's one that we're really proud of. Project 99 is one that we've just finished, and this was, we were hired by our National Health Service to really think about how young people are using technology and the internet to stay mentally well. And it was a fascinating project, and the young people just blew our minds. They were so awesome. We got them to do the client pitch, because really a lot of the time as a service designer, you're facilitating. You're not actually designing a service. You're facilitating the right people in the room at the right time to design their own service. So they came up with, you know, really beautiful insights on how the internet can be more responsive and more adaptable to young people who are using the internet on every facet of their life. You know, we had to turn that into really rigorous information to give to our National Health Service to say, you know, this is what it looks like. This is all the different digital assets that the young person is using when they're navigating their way through the online world. And the young people came up with really awesome ideas, which I can't do justice to. But so this one, do not push the button. This was the whole thing of when you go on a site and it's like over 18s only or do not enter. They're like, go, you know, it's like that thing, like don't push the button. So like, so they made gifts. They made gifts to show these ideas, and now we're working with their clients to think about how we can take these forward so that the internet can be a place where young people are empowered to combat cyberbullying, to look after their friends, to help each other understand where's safe and where's not safe. And the rubbish project, we're working with Glasgow City Council to reimagine waste and recycling in the city of Glasgow. And you know, our designers are literally immersing themselves in the rubbish of our city and building techniques and ways to reach out to very diverse groups of communities and people who, you know, all have a different perception of what waste means to them and what it means to their family home and their environment, and really engaging people in creative ways so that they all feel part of the solution that we'll create at the end, and that's currently ongoing. And Sterling Makes is an example of the embedding designers inside a government agency. So Sterling Council is one of 32 local authorities that we have in Scotland, and we built up a relationship with the CEO who, you know, really got this stuff and was so excited to think about what would happen if we had a design studio, a design capacity inside our council. And that, you know, was very challenging. We've learned lots along the way. But the important thing that I think we always focus on when doing this stuff is you need to do a project while you're doing the embedding. Because without the project, there's no proof. And all the people who are, you know, thinking that you're crazy are going to keep thinking that unless you can show them proof and evidence every step of the way of why that's a good idea. So we did a project all about community councils, which are very common in the UK, where local people nominate other local people, and it's just all a bit messy and not really working the way our government thought it was going to work. So that was what we worked on to build this space. Care Information Scotland, we have have our National Health Service as a 24-hour helpline, and they wanted to build something similar but just for care. And they wanted to involve young people who were carers or being cared for in that process, but they didn't know how. So they brought us on board, and again, we turned these guys into designers. They were the experts, and they were in charge of the direction this project went in, and then we produced really detailed blueprints so that the service rolled out literally on a piece of paper, so our client understands all the different touch points and channels that need to talk to each other and flow together so that this care information service will work for the young people. So I hope it's pretty obvious by now that I really do believe this. I believe design is integral to the DNA of every public service, but this type of work is really not easy. This type of change is incredibly difficult, as I'm sure all of you know and feel on a daily basis as well. And that's part of one reason why we also have ventures. And these are things that we think up along the way, and then when the competition arises or the funds comes up, we try and enter them. So Dave mentioned the example of my police. This is probably our most successful venture. Sarah thought up the idea because her friend got burgled and had a bit of a shitty experience and wanted to give feedback. And they sent round a big 6-foot officer who was clearly not happy and not really up for feedback. And we thought, why can't we just talk to them online, where we all live and play and work and learn? And 4 years ago, there was no police using social media at all, so this felt quite innovative. And we won some money from a fund to hire a developer and build a platform so that local people could upload their story. The story could be a thank you, question, query, and our technology sent it directly to the local officer, and they then started having a one-to-one conversation with their local officer. So really about closing feedback loops, educating the police on the importance of transparency and human conversations. And our pilot made BBC News, which was amazing given that our pilot was in a place called Oxenmurphy, which we won't ask to repeat, where there's actually no people, never mind any crime. We're like up American. So I was like, I will make this work. And what happened was we got lots of stories about parking. Now, not that interesting, but what it showed was the police really listened. They took these stories and made a service change happen, and held up their hands and said, we didn't know this was a problem until my police was there. And it's very simple, again, a lot of common sense, and it only works because we are neutral. Lots of forces have tried to copy us and it doesn't work because they are police. It has to be a neutral space that systems feel safe in. The Matter is a project that we hope to set up as a separate social enterprise or a charity eventually. So the Matter is all about turning youth consultation on its head. So right now, as an organisation, let's find out what the young people think, which happens a lot. They might put out some questionnaires or hire a research agency. What the Matter does is it gives young people a way to really have their voice heard. So somebody asks a question, the young people form a team, and it's designed specifically for young people from vulnerable communities. And they then go through a design-led program that Snook has designed. So it teaches them ethnography, it teaches them how to prototype, how to, carry out interviews, all that stuff. And then they pull all that together into a newspaper. And I've got the 2 papers from our pilot here that I can just kind of hand around if you want to have a wee look. So the young people then have to learn how to copyright. They learn about typography, they learn about the importance of colour and imagery. And all the while, having run this project, they're learning timekeeping, they're learning how to stick to deadlines, and by the end of it, they're more employable because they've been through this process. And the client has this newspaper that's full of really rich insight and data and stories that traditional research doesn't capture. And it really had a big impact. This was the first group that we piloted with. And Edinburgh Council actually took one of the ideas from the paper and fast-tracked it through a community grant process, and it's now been put into place. So this is an example of something we want to set up as almost as a separate company so that it can live on its own and be separate from it. We do this together with a fantastic charity in Scotland called Young Scot, and they really help us, find the young people and make sure the young people are safe and respected at every step of the process. And we're building, one that I'm really excited about, we're currently building a tool called Badge Maker. So Mozilla recently opened up all the technology around open badges. And an open badge is basically a digital badge that you can build to accredit a soft skill. So right now, when you want to build a badge, you need to know how to code, which lots of learners and lots of teachers can't. So we saw a need to build Badge Maker so that a teacher and a learner can sit down together and build these digital badges. And this whole movement has the potential to completely revolutionise learning and how you make learning visible and tangible. So that's something that hopefully will eventually become its own company as well and can start to have a real impact in the education space. So just to kind of wrap up on the design for government thing, because I know that a lot of you in the room are very passionate about that. We spend a lot of time really thinking about how innovation happens in government and where ideas come from, where briefs come from, where companies get brought in, where experts are taught and what that looks like. And a lot of the time our conclusion is there isn't really any design happening in this space. So we start to think, well, what would happen if our government was a do tank instead of a think tank? And who are all the different parties that would have to be involved in that to make it work? And what kind of things would they work on? And this is a conversation that is extremely complex and very systematic. This whole thing is part of a huge ecosystem that requires designers, I think, to be much more strategic about where they place themselves and the narrative they use about the type of skills that they have. So we are fomenting a revolution in Scotland. And yeah, you still look nice. Thank you for listening. And this is my email address, and I put my Twitter's here. And I would really love to continue the conversation because I think you could all really inspire me and probably challenge me on some of the stuff that I've said this evening. I'd really love that to happen. So thank you very much.